Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop desperately chasing something, a deal, a relationship, a breakthrough, it somehow finds its way to you? Like the second you finally let go, the thing you wanted just shows up? Most people brush that off as coincidence. But what if it isn't? What if there's a precise, reproducible mechanism behind that experience? One that certain power structures across history understood completely and worked very deliberately to keep buried. Because here's what I want to lay out for you in this video. The elites didn't suppress this knowledge because it was wrong. They suppressed it because it works. And the core of it is this: the state you operate from is more powerful than any strategy, any plan, any amount of grinding you could ever do. Not trying harder, not controlling more, the state. I'm going to show you exactly what that means, why resistance is silently killing your results, and how to shift into a frequency so magnetic that reality bends toward you. Let's get into it. My name is Daniel Moreno, and I've spent a long time, honestly, an embarrassing amount of time, doing this the wrong way. I want to start with the most important equation in all of personal development, and I mean that. If you could distill every self-help book, every success framework, every spiritual teaching into a single formula, it would be this: desire plus non-resistance equals your desired result. That's it. Write that down. Seriously, put it somewhere you'll see it every morning, because once this clicks for you, you cannot unsee it. Now let me break that down, because it's deceptively simple. Desire, that part people get. You want something. More money, better health, a relationship that actually feels good, a business that doesn't run you into the ground. People are great at wanting things. The part that trips everyone up is the second half, non-resistance. Because the moment most people set a goal, they immediately fall into resistance, and they don't even know it's happening. Here's how you can tell whether you're in resistance or not. And this is actually really simple. How do you feel? That's it. If you feel curious, if you feel excited, if there's a kind of peaceful anticipation in your chest about the thing you want, you're not in resistance. But if you feel stressed about it, anxious, like you have to figure it out right now or it's all going to fall apart, that's resistance. And that resistance is the wall standing between you and the result. So here's the paradox, right? And this is the thing they don't teach you anywhere. The thought, I have to make this happen or it won't happen, feels like motivation. It feels productive. It feels like you're being responsible. But the moment that thought enters your system, it introduces pressure. And pressure reveals fear. And fear is the exact frequency that keeps the thing you want out of reach. Think about that. The harder you grip, the further it slips. The more you try to control the outcome, the more you're broadcasting the belief that you don't already have it. And the universe, or your subconscious, or your reticular activating system, pick whatever framework makes sense to you, doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your state of being, your emotional frequency. So all that hustle, all that grinding, all that planning from a place of panic, it's not neutral. It's actively working against you. Because you're not taking action from certainty or flow, you're taking action from the fear of not having the thing. And that's what you keep recreating, the absence of it. I personally think this is the most suppressed insight in the entire history of human consciousness. More dangerous to certain power structures than any political idea. Because the moment people understand that their state is their most powerful tool, they stop being manageable. You can't sell anxiety-fueled productivity courses to someone who has genuinely internalized this. You can't keep people on the hamster wheel when they understand the wheel isn't the mechanism. And look, I get how this sounds. When I first encountered this idea years ago, I thought it was soft. I thought it was something people said when they weren't willing to do the work. But the science actually backs this up. Your brain is a goal-achieving machine, right? It will find the path to whatever it believes is true. If the dominant belief in your system is, I don't have enough and I'm running out of time, your brain will find evidence for that every single day. It will filter your reality to confirm the fear. That's not metaphysics. That's just neuroscience. So now you might be thinking, okay, fine, but does that mean I just sit on my couch and wait for things to arrive? And I want to address that directly because this is where people misunderstand the whole teaching. Doing nothing doesn't mean being passive. It means releasing the frantic, fear-driven need to control every variable. It means taking action, consistent, faithful, daily action, but from a relaxed and surrendered state rather than from panic. There's a massive difference between those two, and most people have never actually felt the second one. Let me give you a concrete example from my own life. A few years back, I was trying to grow a project I'd been working on for about 18 months, and I was working on it the wrong way. Meaning, I was obsessed with the metrics, constantly checking numbers, tweaking things, rewriting things, running on about 4 hours of sleep and 3 too many coffees. And look, I'm not proud of the coffee situation. My wife had opinions about that. Strong ones. The project was barely moving. Everything felt stuck, and the harder I pushed, the more stuck it got. And then I had this moment. I remember exactly where I was, sitting at my kitchen table at like 11 at night, where I just gave up. Not quit, but genuinely released the grip on it. I decided the thing was either going to work or it wasn't, and I was going to stop white-knuckling every detail. I went to sleep. I stopped checking the numbers every hour. Within 2 weeks, without adding any new strategy, without pulling any new lever, the project shifted. Opportunities started showing up that I hadn't manufactured. Connections appeared. Things started moving. Was that magic? No. What happened was that I stopped operating from a state of contraction and scarcity, and I started operating from a state of openness. And from that state, I made better decisions, had clearer ideas, and noticed things I'd been too anxious to see before. That's the control paradox. The tighter you hold, the less you have. The moment you release the grip, not from apathy, but from genuine trust, the mechanism starts working with you instead of against you. Now, there's a reason this works, and it's not mystical. When you're operating from a high state, relaxed, curious, open, you are literally more intelligent. Your prefrontal cortex is more active. You make better connections. You notice more. You take more creative action. Contrast that with operating from stress and fear, where your body is in survival mode, your thinking narrows, you stop seeing options, and you execute the same patterns over and over, expecting different results. Look at the world's greatest performers. Athletes, musicians, speakers, what do they all share? They're relaxed. Watch a great jazz musician. Watch an elite sprinter right before the gun. There's a stillness there. That's not apathy, that's mastery. They've learned to stop fighting the moment and start flowing with it. But here's what's wild, right? We live in a culture that's running completely backwards from this. Everyone is tight. People are wired on stimulants, glued to their phones, doom scrolling through bad news at 2 in the morning. And then they wonder why nothing is working. You cannot create what you want from a compressed, contracted, fear-driven state. It is literally neurologically impossible. The teaching that the elites work to erase, whether you trace it through the mystery schools, through ancient Vedic traditions, through early Christian mysticism before it got sanitized, through the philosophical frameworks of the Renaissance alchemists, all of them pointed at the same truth. Your inner state is the generative field. Your outer reality is the printout. Change the field, the printout changes. Try to change the printout without changing the field, and you will exhaust yourself for decades and get nowhere. And honestly, that exhaustion is not accidental. A population that believes the only path to results is harder work and tighter control is a population that stays on the wheel. Understand the actual mechanism, and everything changes. All right, so let's bring this to the practical level, because I know somebody watching this is thinking, okay, Daniel, this all sounds great, but how do I actually do this? Like, I have real bills. I have a real deadline. How do I relax into the inevitability of my goals when the circumstances in front of me are screaming otherwise? And this is the most important part, so listen closely. First, and I cannot stress this enough, you have to understand that the feeling of need is the signal that you're in resistance, not the signal that you need to try harder. The feeling of, I have to make this happen or else, is your cue to step back, not to push forward. Problems, when you stop fighting them, often dissolve on their own. And I know that sounds like something a yoga teacher says right before they hand you a smoothie, but I mean it literally. I had a situation about a year into building something I cared about where there was a conflict, a real one. A financial one, and I spent 3 weeks trying to negotiate, argue, and force a resolution. It was brutal. I was losing sleep. I was bringing it into every conversation with people I cared about. And then finally, I just dropped it. Not because I gave up, but because I was genuinely spent. 2 days later, the other party reached out and offered a resolution that was better than anything I had tried to engineer. That's not a fairy tale. That's how the mechanism works when you stop blocking it. A viewer commented on one of my recent uploads, someone who's been following this work for a while, and they said something that stuck with me. I have experienced exactly what you spoke about. I have learned to reduce the importance of what people say and do to nullify what they meant to trigger in me. That's it. That's the practical application of non-resistance. It's not that nothing matters. It's that you stop assigning life or death weight to every variable outside your control. You reduce the charge on the outcome, and paradoxically, that's what lets the outcome arrive. So the practice looks like this. You make a clear decision, not a wish, not a hope, a decision about what you want. And then you take action every day, but from the most relaxed and grounded state you can access. When you notice you're getting tight, when the anxiety creeps in, when you start grinding your teeth over the gap between where you are and where you want to be, that is the moment to step away. Go for a walk. Sit in silence for 20 minutes. Do something that has nothing to do with the goal. Let the system breathe. Because here's what's actually happening in those moments of release. You stop broadcasting the frequency of absence. You stop sending out the signal that says, I don't have this thing. And when that signal quiets, the reticular activating system in your brain, the part that filters what you notice in reality, shifts. It starts flagging opportunities, conversations, ideas that align with the decision you've made, rather than confirming your fears about why it won't work. There's a reason every wisdom tradition on earth, the Stoics, the Buddhists, the mystics, the Hermetic philosophers, arrives at some version of detachment from outcome. Not indifference to outcome, detachment. The distinction is everything. You care deeply about where you're going. You hold it as certain, but you release the grip on how and when it arrives. Because the how and the when are not yours to control. The state is. And the state, once you actually learn to cultivate it, becomes magnetic in a way that is genuinely hard to describe until you've felt it. When you walk into a room relaxed, certain, without needing anything from anyone in it, people feel that. Opportunities orient toward it. The right connections show up. So that's the secret. That's what was worth 300 years of suppression. Not a technique, not a ritual. A state. Desire plus non-resistance. Set the intention, release the grip, take faithful, daily action from the most powerful, open state you can access, and watch what reality does. If this landed for you, share it with someone who needs it, and I'll see you in the next one.